UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
රින් වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 180යි.
Tonight, taxing issues. Tax expert says the new GST bill could bring about serious challenges.
If you see, all the revenue administration has been completely sidelined and they have been totally disempowered. Maybe this is the first step to sort of disempower these institutions because there may be issues.
Alternative measures. The Health Ministry offers advice to those waiting for second AstraZeneca Sputnik doses.
Anyone who has not got the second dose of AstraZeneca will contact the nearest MOH and they will tell what to do in this regard.
Cooling off. The Met Department says expect more cold spells in the morning hours.
Due to radiation cooling, we can expect cool temperatures. In clear skies, radiation cooling can happen at night.
On the up, expert highlights a rise in dengue cases after lifting of lockdown.
Because once the COVID lockdowns are released, people used to mobilize from places to places. The mobilization made an opportunity to spread the dengue.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Friday, the 21st of January 2022.
Nelly, මතකෙන් ගිලිහුණු black shiny කෙස් කලඹක රහස Sunsilk black shine සමගින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanayaka. Now, with the special GST bill that was tabled in Parliament yesterday facing opposition from Inland Revenue Department unions sidelined from the process, many questions have risen on the effectiveness of the collection program that is set to come under the Ministry of Finance. Speaking to AdaDerana English News on the issue today, tax expert N.R. Gajendran warned that this could lead to some challenges due to what he termed issues with the Finance Minister in direct control of tax base and the rates.
There has been a lot of confusion over the proposed new Special Goods and Services Tax Bill that was presented in Parliament yesterday by Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa following Cabinet approval. The bill is set to amalgamate a range of taxes and levies into a single GST system, which the Finance Ministry says will enhance collection efficiency and, in a way, reduce complications in the entire process as well. Thereby, taxes on tobacco and liquor, vehicles, telecommunications and betting and gaming will come under the new GST tax. The responsibility of administering the new GST process has been handed over to a Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, who will oversee the operations of a new collection unit that is to be set up as well. However, senior partner of tax consulting firm Gajma & Company N.R. Gajendran says that the new process looks to be fraught with complications.
For any imposition of tax, there is two important ingredients. That is, one is the tax base and the other one is the tax rate. Here the bill doesn't state what is the tax base. The power to calculate the tax base has been given to the minister. Similarly, the law doesn't state the rate. The rate has been given to the minister. The minister can specify the tax base for each product and services, and the tax base is going to differ for each product and services. There can be no uniform base because different types of products and services. And then the tax rate. Now, the legislator is totally unaware of these two important components of this law, that is the tax rate and the tax rate. Now, this can be said to create ample room for misgivings, where there is mischief making can be there, because from 1977 onwards, when the rate has been given to the minister, he can suddenly bring down the rates and also can increase the rates to give preference to someone or other.
Gajendran also explained that this is the first time that the power to impose and collect taxes has been given to the ministry, which is only a policy arm, he says, and adds that challenges could be expected in the new process with the sidelining of tax administrators, such as the Inland Revenue, Customs and Excise departments.
If you see all the revenue administration, Inland Revenue Department, Customs and Excise has been completely sidelined in this case and they have been totally disempowered. Maybe that this is the first step to sort of disempower these institutions because there may be issues with these institutions even in the governance structure. If you remember, that in the past, in 2010 or 11, the Western Provincial Council had the power to impose 1% turnover tax. But because of excesses by the department, they were made defunct. Now, whether this is the first step for a trend to disempower the revenue administration is a question, and you can see even the trade unions are raising their voice on this matter. So there are going to be new challenges.
Chief Opposition Whip Lakshman Kiriella today called on the government to appoint sectoral oversight committees to discuss any amendments to the government's new draft constitution when it is finally tabled in Parliament. However, Leader of the House Dinesh Gunawardena responded, calling it an unnecessary move as the government has no intention of tabling a constitution that is not challenged and given the green light by the Supreme Court.
දැන් අවුරුදු දෙකටත් වැඩි පත් කළා නැහැ. ඉතින් මේක බලවත් අසාධාරණයක්. මොකද 20 සංශෝධනයේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගියනකොට ආංශික අධීක්ෂණ කාර්ක සභාව තිබ්බනම් වගන්තිය සාකච්ඡා කරලා තිබ්බා. දැන් රජය කියනවා අලුත් ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් ගේනවා කියලා. එතකොට ඒකත් අර තමන්ගේ පෞද්ගලිකරට කතා කරපු ඉදිරියේ මහතුරුන්ට කියලා මේක ගොඩස් ගාලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගියන එක හරියද? මම කියන්නේ ආංශික අධීක්ෂණ කාර්ක සභාව පත් කළා වගන්තිය එතන සාකච්ඡා කළා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට එන්න ඕන. ඒකයි ඒක අපි ඇතුළත් කරුවේ. ඒක 20 තියෙනවා 19 තියෙනවා. ඒක හොඳයි මොකද උපදේශක කාර්ක සභාවල මේ වගේ පඩත් වලට ගැඹුරේ සාකච්ඡා කරන්නේ. උපදේශක සභාවල වෙන්නේ නිකන් වෙනත් වැඩ සිල්ලර වැඩ. ඉතින් අවුරුදු දෙකක් ප්‍රමාදයි.
පක්ෂ නායක කමිටුවේදී ඉතා පැහැදිලිව මේ කාරණාවල් ගැන රජයේ ස්ථාවරය පැහැදිලි කරා. එතන සිටපු සංවිධායකතුමා යලිත් ඇවිල්ලා වෙනත් ප්‍රකාශයක් කිරීම ගැන මම කනගාටු වෙනවා. අධීක්ෂණ කාර්ක සභාවල් ගියාන්ඩුවෙන් ඇති කරා කියලා එතුමා කියනවා. ගියාන්ඩුවේ අසාර්ථක භාවය නිසා ගෙදර යන්න සිද්ධ වුණා. ජනතාව පත් කරේ මේ ආණ්ඩුව. ඒ අනුව ගියාන්ඩුවේ අන්තිම කාලේ වෙනකොට හැම පනතක්ම නීත්‍යානුකූලව අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයේ තීරණය කළාට පසු ගැසට් නිවේදනයේ පත් කරාට පසු ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ පවතින දින ගණන අනුගමනය කිරීමෙන් පසු පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කොට ඕනෑම පුරවැසියෙක්ට ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයට ගමන් කරන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ඔබතුමාලගේ ආණ්ඩු කාලේ දිනු කාලෙට වඩා කාලයක් අපේ කාලේ ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයට ගමන් කරන්න අවස්ථාවේ තියෙනවා. ඔබතුමා දන්නවා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණ තීරණය එන තුරු අපි කිසිම පනතක් සාකච්ඡාවට ගෙන නැහැ. අපි කොහොමද නැගිට කියන්නේ මේ සභාවේ අපේ උපදේශක කාරක සභාවල සාකච්ඡා කරලා කොයිතරම් වෙනස් කරලා තියෙනවද පනත් වලට ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීවරු විරුද්ධ පක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීවරු ගිහිල්ලා කියලා ඒ වෙනස් කරන ඊට පස්සේ සභාවට ආවමත් සභාවෙත් යෝජනා ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා සංශෝධනයන්ට. ඉතින් මම හිතන්නේ නෑ සාධාරණ කියලා මේ අපේ සංවිධායකතුමා මුළු ජාතියේම මිනිස් ජීවිත තර්ජනයට ලක් කළා තිබුණා කොවිඩ් කාලේ. නැගිටලා ඉල්ලුවාද පාර්ලිමේන්තු විශේෂකාරක සභාවක්. දවසක්වත් ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ පාර්ලිමේන්තු විශේෂකාරක සභාවක්. ඒ වගේ කලින් කලට Tamanට රිසිදේ විසරක් ප්‍රකාශ කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවක් මෙහෙවන්න බෑ.
In the meantime, Speaker of the South Korean National Assembly, Bak Byung-seuk, who was in the island for an official visit, held discussions with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris yesterday. During discussions with the President, the South Korean Speaker pledged support for enhancing investments in Sri Lanka and employment opportunities for skilled workers.
Speaker of the National Assembly of South Korea, Bak Byung-seuk arrived in Sri Lanka on Wednesday for a third visit, following an invitation extended by Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris, who visited Korea earlier this month. Yesterday, he called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. During the discussions, the South Korean speaker pledged support to the president in strengthening employment, vocational training and investment. Further, the president also requested assistance from Bak to encourage leading entities in South Korea to invest in Sri Lanka, with discussions also focusing on foreign employment. Byung-seuk promised the head of state that steps will be taken to increase employment opportunities for Sri Lankans in South Korea. What's more, the South Korean speaker also agreed to provide aid in developing Sri Lanka's vocational training infrastructure depending on the country's requirement. In the meantime, Bak also met Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday. During the meeting, discussions were held on climate change assistance and on strengthening cooperation in the renewable energy sectors between the two countries. Meanwhile, Buck also met Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pieris, where he discussed ways and means to further enhance bilateral cooperation between the two countries. Further discussions on countering the ramifications of the coronavirus pandemic as well as Sri Lanka's progress in reconciliation, the protection and promotion of human rights and its reform process were also held.
Now, even though Sri Lankan health authorities carry out third dose administrations, some administered with just the first doses of the AstraZeneca and Sputnik vaccines have been left waiting for months with no signs of a second dose. Addressing the issue today, Deputy Director General of Education and Research at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemantha Herath, advised that almost 65,000 people waiting for their second doses to reach out to their local MOH officers for a solution.
Apart from adhering to the health and safety guidelines, the next best defense people have against contracting the virus is by getting vaccinated. The World Health Organization has stated that countries would be able to achieve a semblance of control over the virus if they manage to vaccinate 70% of their populations. According to epidemiology unit data, 64% of the country's total population have been fully vaccinated, while 74% have received at least one dose of a vaccine so far. Since the beginning of the vaccination rollout, health authorities have used 5 vaccines in the country, namely AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, Sputnik, Pfizer and Moderna. However, around 10% of those who have received at least a single dose are still waiting for their second doses. These happen to be people who received the Covishield and Sputnik vaccines. The Ministry of Health, however, says that there are no plans to order any more doses of these 2 varieties. Sri Lankan health authorities were informed by India's Serum Institute early last year that they wouldn't be able to supply any more AstraZeneca vaccines due to the Delta variant-led surge in cases in India. Indian health authorities also stopped supplying the vaccines to other countries as well, understandably choosing to focus on vaccinating their own first. After this development, authorities then shifted focus to attempt to procure the Sputnik vaccine developed in Russia. The situation, however, was the same with Russia as well. Even though Sri Lanka was initially supplied with small shipments of Sputnik vaccines in the beginning, a surge of COVID cases in Russia led to a halt in supplies. This was when Sri Lankan authorities moved to procure supplies of the remaining 3 vaccines for the country. Currently, Sri Lanka has 61,038 people waiting to receive a second dose of AstraZeneca and 3,298 waiting for the second dose of the Sputnik jab. As such, this begs the question as to what alternative do these people have if they're unable to get their second doses. Speaking to First at 9 on the matter, Deputy Director General of Education and Research at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemantha Herath, says that the matter must be addressed on a case-by-case basis.
The epidemiology unit has given the specific instructions to the relevant medical officers as to vaccines should be given. It should be a case-by-case affair or scenario. I would like to advise anyone who has not got the second dose of AstraZeneca to contact the nearest MOH and they will tell what to do in this regard. If the MOHs need any further information, they are requested to contact the chief epidemiologist or somebody at the epidemiology unit and get the clear instruction as to what they should do. All these things have to be done in a case-by-case manner. We cannot give broad or blanket instructions as to what should be done because everything depends on the circumstances under which why the second vaccine was failure to give it, maybe from the system side or maybe individual issue. At the moment, anyone who requires the second dose need to contact the nearest medical officer of health.
Now, setting COVID aside, Sri Lanka has recorded 5,500 dengue patients in the 20 days that have elapsed in the New Year so far. The National Dengue Control Unit says that even though it is normal for the country to experience a surge of dengue cases during the month of January, they believe increased mobility of the public may have worsened the situation.
Just as Sri Lanka has been gaining some control over COVID-19, the island's age-old enemy dengue is threatening to sabotage the country's gains. According to the National Dengue Control Unit, the island has recorded 5,500 cases from the 1st to the 20th of January. However, the number of dengue cases has been significantly rising in October and December, with December recording the highest figure of 8,966. The unit says that 60% of the cases reported this month have originated from the Western Province. The figure reported this month exceeds the number of dengue cases recorded in the same month last year, which stood at 2,122. However, Public Health Inspector at the National Dengue Control Unit, Dr. Indika Veerasinghe, says that this is a usual observable trend in the month of January.
Usually, we are getting 2 peaks of dengue in Sri Lanka. That's a usual pattern. During the southwest monsoonal period, where June, July and August, we are getting higher number of patients. And the second peak comes from usually around the December, January with the northeast monsoonal rains. And it usually we are seeing higher number of reporting of dengue patients within November, December and January. And what we have noticed in the February, the reporting of dengue just going down to a baseline. And again, we can see another rising trend during the end of the month May and from there to August.
Further, Dr. Veerasinghe says that the threat of dengue raising its head once again in the country is very real, especially with the increase in commuters.
Higher number of patients reported during the period of November and December. The same pattern we can see in January also in 2022. So because once the COVID lockdowns are released, the lockdown, people used to mobilize from places to places and they get to their working places, and the mobilization made an opportunity to spread the dengue.
Nevertheless, Dr. Indika Veerasinghe urged the public to take precautions to ensure their surroundings are free of mosquito breeding habitats.
People have to keep their premises, especially their houses and surrounding and their working place and surrounding, free of mosquito breeding. If they are having any mosquito breeding that they can't clean, they can get the assistance from their public health inspector from their respective area.
We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, with several districts having experienced a drop in temperatures during the early hours of the morning today, the Department of Meteorology says that radiation cooling is the main reason for this phenomenon. According to the department, we can expect colder mornings throughout the next couple of days as well.
In the early hours of the morning today, temperatures in several districts across the island dropped drastically, resulting in a bit of a cold spell. At around 8:30 am, temperatures in Ratnapura, Polonnaru and Kandy were recorded at around 22 degrees Celsius, while in Anuradhapura, Jaffna and Colombo district, temperatures were below 25 degrees Celsius. Further misty conditions were experienced in the Colombo city as well as in Beliatta and Valasmulla in the southern province. AdaDerana English News reached out to the Department of Meteorology to find out the reason behind this temperature drop.
Due to radiation cooling, we can expect cool temperatures during early morning hours. In clear skies, radiation cooling can happen at night. Emitted radiation can freely transmit through the atmosphere. We can expect this during next couple of days. And ground frost also can be expected at places in Nuwara district during early morning hours.
According to the Department of Meteorology's forecast for tomorrow, fair weather is expected over most parts of the island. However, misty conditions can be expected in areas of the western, central, Sabaragamu, north central and Nuwa provinces as well as in the Gaul, Mathura districts in the morning tomorrow.
Now, the new members have been appointed to the Committee on Parliamentary Business in terms of provisions of the Standing Orders 115 of Parliament. This was announced in the House yesterday by Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardene. Accordingly, the Deputy Speaker, the Deputy Chairperson of Committees, the Leader of the House of Parliament, the Leader of the Opposition in Parliament, the Chief Government Whip and the Chief Opposition Whip and 21 other members were appointed as members of the committee chaired by the Speaker. 20 members of Parliament were also nominated by the Speaker yesterday, with one more to be appointed in the future. In other local news, former Director of the Criminal Investigation Department, SSP Shani Abesekere, has filed a petition with the Appeals Court seeking a writ order nullifying the recommendations presented against him by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on incidents of political victimization. Retired Supreme Court Justice Upali Abeyaratne and other members of the said Presidential Commission, Avant-Garde Security Services and its Chairman Nisanka Senadipati and Senior State Counsel Janaka Bandara have been named as respondents in this petition. In his petition, Abesekere states that he had received notice to appear before the Presidential Commission on the 16th of June 2020 based on a complaint lodged by the Chairman of the Avant-Garde, Nisanka Senadipati. He points out that the Presidential Commission on Political Victimization has no jurisdiction to investigate the complaints made by the avant-garde chairman, as lawsuits pertaining to the complaint were being heard before a trial at bar of the Colombo High Court and the Colombo Magistrates Court. Accordingly, he requested the appeals court to invalidate the recommendations made by the Presidential Commission on the 24th of November 2020, as they have no legal basis. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, Sri Lankan shares ended marginally higher today, clocking their 7th straight weekly gain, helped by gains in heavyweight industrial stocks. The CC All Share Price Index ended 0.08% higher at 13,371.61, having recorded a weekly gain of 0.25%. The S&P SL 20 meanwhile posted a marginal gain of 0.19% to close at 4,604.99 points. With that, here's Dimantha Mathi with a brief report on today's market performance.
There was a bit of a slowdown in most of the activity levels. So if you take the turnover levels, we saw only turnover of just under 5 billion rupees. And the number of transactions also declined to 38,000. There seems to be a bit of a wait and see approach that is happening in the market. So most of the investors are waiting for the results season to start. Only a few earnings are being released in some of the counters, and there are a lot of companies that the investors are waiting for positive results, and because of that there seems to be a bit of a halt in activity levels at the moment. However, the market managed to move into the positive territory today. At the start of the day itself, we saw a bit of a spike in the market, and until midday we saw the market in green territory and trading on a positive note. However, the gains that were made early on were erased and market was moving towards the negative territory.
In the meantime, the rupee once again remained unchanged at 202.99 cents against the US dollar today as well. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.